Imagine this: you're sitting across from her, the air charged with something you can't quite name. She's smiling, nodding, even laughing at your jokes. On the surface, everything seems fine. But deep down, you sense something is off. Her words say one thing, but her body is whispering another. You don't know why, but you feel yourself chasing harder, leaning in more, trying to pull her closer when in reality, she's already slipping away. That is the trap most men fall into. Not because they don't try hard enough, but because they don't see what's right in front of them. The truth isn't in her texts, her stories, or her excuses. It's in the tiny, almost invisible cues of her body language. And most men miss it. Some women won't ever tell you no. They don't need to. They let their arms fold across their chest, their shoulders angle away, their eyes drift toward the door. That's all the rejection you're going to get. And if you can't read it, you'll waste weeks, months, even years on someone who already made up her mind. Think back, how many times have you walked away from a date thinking she was just shy, only to realize later she wasn't shy at all. She was uninterested. How many times have you texted, invested, overthought, when her body already told you she was gone? Here's the first brutal truth. A woman's interest is not measured by what she says. It's measured by how her body reacts to you. If she leans in, touches her neck, mirrors your movements, she's unconsciously drawn to you. If she pulls back, keeps her hands hidden, angles her feet toward the exit, she's protecting herself from closeness. Words can be polite, words can be deceptive, body language rarely lies. But here's the psychological trap men are wired to chase validation. When she withdraws her body, you think, maybe if I tell a better story, maybe if I prove I'm funny enough, maybe if I show her how much I care, she'll warm up. So you lean closer, you overinvest, you throw energy at someone who is already pulling energy away. What happens then? She feels even more suffocated. Her body closes more. Her smile tightens, and you walk home confused, asking yourself why she led you on. She didn't. Her body told you the truth. You just didn't want to listen. This is why awareness is power. When you catch the signs early, you stop bleeding effort into a dead end. You save your energy for the women who show you real interest without hesitation, and you break free from the emotional slavery of begging for what was never yours to begin with. Now, here's the strategy. The next time you're with her, don't drown in her words. Watch her posture. Notice her feet. If she's facing you fully, open arms, leaning forward, that's interest. If she's turned halfway, one foot pointed to the exit, arms folded like armor, that's disinterest. Don't argue with it. Don't rationalize it. Don't ask, but what if she's just nervous? Take it as it is. And here's the move: when you see withdrawal, don't chase, mirror her indifference. If she leans back, you lean back further. If she gives half effort, you give none. This is not about punishing her. It's about refusing to play the fool in a game she's already checked out of. Do you know what happens when you stop chasing two things? Either she feels the loss of your attention and re-engages, or she disappears completely. Both outcomes are wins. If she leans back in, you know her interest is real, not forced. If she drifts away, you've just saved yourself months of false hope. Either way, you keep your dignity intact. And here's the deeper layer. Women are experts in soft rejection. They don't want to bruise your ego, so they let body language carry the message. They'll smile politely while creating invisible distance. They'll accept a drink while angling their torso toward their friends. They'll laugh at your joke with their mouth, but not with their eyes. You must train yourself to catch these micro-expressions. That's your shield, because the moment you ignore them, you step into her frame, the frame where she has all the power, and you're left begging for scraps. I'll tell you something most men won't admit. The cost of missing these signs isn't just wasted time, it's self-respect. Every time you chase someone who's not interested, you teach yourself that your energy is worthless, that your attention is free. You give away the most valuable currency a man has, his focus, and once you lose it, it's hard to get it back. But once you learn to pull away at the first sign of disinterest, you send a signal, not just to her, but to yourself. My time matters. My presence is not a gift I hand to everyone. It has to be earned. So ask yourself right now, have you ever sat across from a woman whose smile looked perfect but felt empty? Have you ever ignored the stiffness in her shoulders, the way she leaned away, because you didn't want to face the truth? And what did it cost you in the end? Be honest. Was it your time, your pride, or your sense of worth? Think about the last time you left a date feeling drained instead of energized. She didn't insult you. She didn't say, "I don't like you." But something about her presence felt like resistance. Maybe she checked her phone a little too often. Maybe her eyes glazed over when you spoke. Maybe she gave short answers, forcing you to carry the weight of the conversation. That was her body language screaming louder than her words, and yet you convinced yourself to overlook it. Why? Because men are conditioned to believe that persistence wins. You think if you just push harder, she'll come around. But when her body closes off, every ounce of persistence only makes you look weaker. Here's what most men fail to realize: attraction is fluid, but interest is binary. Either she's open to you or she's not. Her body tells you which side she's on before her mouth ever does. A woman who is truly interested doesn't sit stiffly like she's in a job interview. She doesn't keep her arms crossed like a shield. She doesn't hold her purse on her lap like armor. She opens, she softens, she leans, and when she does, it doesn't feel forced. You don't have to perform. You don't have to chase. It feels effortless. That's the signal you should train yourself to seek. But when you miss those signals, you set yourself up for one of the most dangerous traps in modern dating, the slow bleed. You keep investing while she gives you nothing in return. She doesn't reject you outright, she just lets you orbit, hoping you'll eventually get the hint. Sometimes she even enjoys the attention. Your effort becomes her entertainment. And you, blind to her body language, become the perfect provider of validation without any real intimacy in return. That's how men get stuck in the maybe zone, not because women lie, but because men refuse to see the truth. The psychology behind it is simple. When she withdraws physically, turns her torso away, avoids prolonged eye contact, keeps objects between you, she's creating space, and your instinct is to fill it. That's what kills your power. The more you push into her space, the more she recoils, and suddenly, she's in control. She dictates the pace, while you scramble to prove yourself worthy of scraps of attention. But the reality is, you're not reading her signs, you're betraying your own. So here's the tactic you need to burn into your mind every time her body pulls away. Your body should do the same. If she leans back, you don't lean forward, you match her distance or even increase it. If she avoids eye contact, you don't stare harder hoping she'll look back, you break it first. If she crosses her arms, you don't open yours wider to prove trust. You let the silence hang. This is not passive aggression. This is calibration. It communicates one thing clearly: I'm not here to beg for what's not freely given. Women respect that far more than forced enthusiasm. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop overcompensating, you'll see a shift. If she's truly interested but testing you, she'll re-engage. Her body will start mirroring yours, closing the distance. But if she wasn't interested at all, she'll vanish faster. That's the best case scenario. Because the faster you know, the faster you can cut her off and redirect your energy. Time is a man's greatest asset, And women who waste it are stealing more than minutes, they're stealing momentum, confidence, and clarity. The truth is, the strongest men are not the ones who win every woman over. They're the ones who walk away from the wrong ones without hesitation. They don't need her approval to validate their worth. They read the subtle withdrawal in her body language, and instead of trying to fix it, they treat it as final. That's not coldness, that's strength. That's the kind of man women remember long after he leaves, because he never begged, never clung, never reduced himself to a performer in her show. I'll give you a personal example. A man I knew once took a woman out for dinner. She smiled politely, but throughout the night, her shoulders angled toward the exit. She fiddled with her wineglass, nodded at his stories without asking a single question back. He noticed it. Instead of pushing harder, he simply finished the evening, thanked her for her time, and never reached out again. Weeks later, she tried to reconnect. Why? Because he didn't chase her indifference. His awareness exposed her test. His restraint preserved his power. That's the difference between a man who wastes years and a man who moves with clarity. Now ask yourself, how many times have you ignored these signals because you didn't want to face rejection head on? How many times have you poured more effort into a woman who already told you, with her silence and her posture, that she wasn't open to you? And what's worse, how many times have you convinced yourself that maybe she's just shy when deep down you knew the answer? Be honest. What's the hardest sign for you to accept when she avoids eye contact? When she angles away? Or when she goes cold but still smiles politely? And when you see it, do you pull back or do you double down? Which mistake have you made before? You know the moment that stings the most, it's not when she rejects you outright. It's when she stays just close enough to keep you guessing, but far enough to keep you starving. Her body gives you crumbs of presence without ever opening the door. She'll stand beside you, but with her arms locked across her chest. She'll laugh at your joke, but tilt her head slightly away. She'll hug you goodbye with her hips pushed back instead of close. These are micro movements, but they carry a heavy message. I want the benefits of your attention without the burden of intimacy. And if you miss it, you become her willing participant in a game she's already decided. The danger is that your brain doesn't process it as rejection. Instead, it processes it as uncertainty. And uncertainty is addictive. Psychologists have shown that intermittent rewards, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, create the strongest attachment. That's why casinos thrive and why men chase women who give mixed signals. Her body language becomes a slot machine. One moment she brushes her hair back while looking at you. The next, she's angled away, scrolling her phone. You think, maybe if I just stay longer, if I invest a little more, I'll hit the jackpot. And that is exactly how you trap yourself in her orbit. But here's the raw truth when a woman is genuinely drawn to you. Her body doesn't send mixed signals. Attraction isn't confusing. It's obvious. She leans in because she wants to feel your presence closer. She laughs and touches your arm without hesitation. Her eyes stay locked on yours because she's magnetized. That doesn't mean she's in love. It means she's open. And when you feel it, there's no guesswork. The men who ignore this difference are the ones who get strung along, month after month, convincing themselves she's just complicated. So here's the counter move. Stop analyzing her words. Stop drowning in her stories. Start training your eyes on her physical truth. The next time you're talking and she crosses her arms, don't think she's cold. Think she's closed. The next time her feet point toward the door, don't think she's restless. Think she's already leaving. The moment you see that, detach. Not with anger, not with pettiness, with calm finality. If she reopens later, fine. If she doesn't, you just saved yourself from a slow bleed. Detachment is not loss, it's protection. And here's the part most men refuse to face. When you keep investing in a woman who signals disinterest, you're not only wasting time, you're teaching her. You're showing her that she can give you less and you'll still stay, that she can close her body off, withdraw affection, and you'll work twice as hard to compensate. You're training her to see you as low value, because high-value men don't chase what runs. They don't plead with closed arms. They don't sell themselves to someone who's already gone. They walk, and walking away is what commands respect, even if it doesn't win her back. Let me make this tactical. The next time you're with a woman and you sense withdrawal, do this: lean back in your chair, slow your breathing, and create space. Stop filling the silence with stories or questions. Let her feel the gap. If she's interested, she'll bridge it. She'll uncross her arms. She'll lean forward. She'll touch her hair. She'll restart the energy. If she doesn't, you have your answer. And instead of wasting nights or months, you can make a clean exit. That's how you keep your power. That's how you stop negotiating with indifference. And if you think this is harsh, consider the cost of not doing it. Every time you ignore these signals, you dig yourself deeper into self-betrayal. You tell yourself, it's not that bad, while your gut screams it is. You pretend she's busy when really she's detached. You sacrifice your clarity for the illusion of possibility, and in doing so, you bleed your masculine edge dry. Attraction is not about begging, it's about polarity. And polarity only exists when both sides lean in. If she's leaning out, and you keep leaning in, the tension collapses, the spark dies, and you're left alone, wondering why she lost interest, when the truth is she never had it. I'll leave you with this to sit on. Women respect men who can read their silence, not because they want you to decode every twitch, but because they want a man who refuses to waste himself, a man who values his presence enough to say, if you're not all in, I'm out. That's not arrogance, that's self-protection. And it's the exact kind of strength that women feel but rarely say out loud. Now, I want to ask you directly, have you ever mistaken her polite smile for real attraction? Have you ever convinced yourself to stay, even when her body screamed no? And what excuse did you give yourself to justify it? There's a brutal moment every man eventually faces. You're standing there, pouring your words, your energy, your charm into her, and she's giving you almost nothing back. Maybe she tilts her chin up and gives a half smile, but her eyes are scanning the room. Maybe she answers your questions, but never asks one back. Maybe her arms stay locked in front of her like a fortress, while you're sitting there completely open, hoping she'll let you in. You feel the imbalance, but instead of pulling back, you double down. You tell yourself, if I just try harder, she'll feel it. That's the lie. And the more you feed it, the more you bury yourself. This is where men lose not just women, but themselves. Because every time you overinvest when she's physically disengaged, you reinforce a devastating narrative that your presence isn't enough on its own, that you must perform, beg, and prove to be worthy of her openness. But here's the raw truth. The strongest men don't try to open a closed door. They don't try to resuscitate a spark that isn't there. They move on, because they know what women will never admit directly: attraction can't be negotiated. It's either there or it's not. And her body language will tell you before her mouth ever will. Why does this work so powerfully against men? Because women are taught to be polite, not blunt. Very few will say, I'm not interested. Instead, they use subtle withdrawal to protect their image and your ego. But if you're not trained to see it, you'll mistake her politeness for hope. That's how you become her emotional pet, someone she keeps around to entertain her when she's bored, without ever opening her heart. She doesn't need to lie. She just lets you lie to yourself. So how do you stop blading yourself dry? You shift from chasing to testing. Instead of asking, how can I make her like me? You start asking, is she showing me enough investment to deserve my attention? That's where body language becomes your filter. Watch for reciprocity. If you lean in and she stays back, stop leaning. If you share and she doesn't, stop giving. If her eyes wander, let them wander. Don't fight for them. Indifference is your weapon, because the man who doesn't need her response is the one who controls the frame. Here's the deeper psychological reason indifference works. Women are drawn to men who respect themselves enough to withdraw from disinterest. When you stop chasing, two things happen in her mind. First, if she was never interested, she feels relief and she disappears. Perfect. You cut her out before she wasted more of your time. Second, if she was testing, she feels tension and she re-engages. She leans forward, she touches her hair, she reopens what she was closing. Either way, you win. The only way you lose is by ignoring the signs and chasing harder. Picture this. You're at a bar. She's standing slightly angled away, holding her drink close, giving one-word answers. Most men would lean closer, talk louder, crack another joke to break the ice. The trained man does the opposite. He mirrors her distance, leans back, and lets silence sit. Suddenly, she realizes he won't do the heavy lifting for her. If she wants the connection, she has to contribute. If she doesn't, she drifts away, and he hasn't wasted another second. That's power. That's discipline. And that's the frame you need to live in. But here's where most men sabotage themselves. They take withdrawal personally. They think, if she's not leaning in, it means I'm not good enough. Wrong. It simply means she's not your match. And instead of clinging to her, you should be grateful, because every woman who closes off saves you the effort of chasing a fantasy. Your worth isn't measured by how many women open to you. It's measured by how quickly you walk from the ones who don't. This isn't about arrogance, it's about clarity. The world is filled with women who would light up in your presence, who would mirror your body language without hesitation, who would open instead of close. But you'll never meet them if you're stuck trying to resuscitate someone who's already mentally checked out. The man who masters this discipline lives differently. He doesn't waste years. He doesn't cling to maybe. He doesn't fall for the illusion of mixed signals. He reads the truth. He acts on it. And he never looks back. Now ask yourself, how many times have you mistaken her withdrawal for a challenge to overcome, instead of a truth to accept? How many years of your life have you lost to women who gave you just enough to keep you guessing? And the real question, when was the last time you had the courage to walk away at the first sign of indifference, without needing her approval to justify it? Here's the part that most men never admit out loud when you ignore her body language. It's not just about her, it's about you betraying yourself. Every time you lean in when she's leaning out, every time you talk more while she drifts further, every time you try to convince her with effort when her posture screams disinterest, you're telling yourself that her comfort is more valuable than your dignity. That is how men slowly erode their confidence, not in one moment, but in 1,000 tiny compromises where they knew the truth and chose to ignore it. Think about it. Have you ever been on a date where she gave you nothing but polite smiles, yet you kept pushing the conversation forward? Have you ever walked her to her car, only to get a quick, stiff hug that felt more like a handshake? In that moment, your gut screamed that she wasn't into you, but instead of owning it, you clung to the illusion, replayed the night in your head, and convinced yourself maybe she was just tired. That's the lie men sell themselves to avoid the sting of reality, and that's why they keep losing. Here's the unfiltered truth. Attraction reveals itself in openness, not excuses. A woman who wants you doesn't need you to decode signals like a secret agent. She shows it. She turns her body toward you, not away. She touches her hair, her necklace, the table, because her nervous energy seeks expression. She smiles with her eyes, not just her lips. That's not subtle, that's obvious. What's subtle is her disinterest, the crossed arms, the tilted torso, the frozen smile. Those are the signs men pretend not to see because they'd rather chase hope than face rejection. But rejection isn't the enemy. Self-deception is, because the man who can read her withdrawal and still stay is not strong. He's weak, addicted to possibility. The strong man sees her body turn away and doesn't hesitate. He withdraws his attention as naturally as she withdrew hers. He doesn't debate, rationalize, or overthink. He acts, and in doing so, he reclaims the most powerful form of control a man can ever have control over himself. Let's turn this into a practical weapon. The next time you sense indifference, whether it's her pulling her phone out mid-conversation, her arms crossing, or her gaze drifting, perform this mental shift. Instead of asking, "What can I do to get her attention back?" ask, "Why should I give my attention to someone who doesn't value it?" That single reframe is the difference between a man who chases and a man who commands. Because attention is currency, and the men who spend it recklessly end up broke. The ones who protect it multiply it. And here's the kicker. Women know this game better than you do. They can feel when you're desperate for signs of interest. They can feel when you're ignoring their body's rejection. And the more you chase, the less they respect you. But when you refuse to play along, when you calmly withdraw, when you mirror their distance without bitterness, they notice. Even if they don't admit it, it burns into their memory. Because most men can't do it. Most men stay too long, give too much, and leave too late. The man who leaves first is unforgettable. I'll give you a story. A guy once told me about a date he went on. He noticed halfway through the dinner that she wasn't engaged. Her posture was stiff, her eyes kept scanning the room, and she answered his questions without adding anything back. Most men would have fought harder, cracked more jokes, tried to win her over. He didn't. He finished his meal, smiled, and said, "Thanks for the evening. I don't think this is the right fit." He walked out without bitterness. 2 weeks later, she texted him asking for another chance. Why? Because she had never met a man who could read the signs and walk away with calm finality. His strength created attraction where his words never could. So let me hit you with this. The more you ignore her body language, the more you weaken your own. Every time you stay too long, you practice weakness. Every time you walk away early, you practice power. And the man you practice becoming is the man you will eventually be. Which one are you training? The man who can't leave the table without crumbs, or the man who leaves the table to feast elsewhere? Be real with yourself. What's harder for you, noticing the signs or acting on them? Have you ever felt her body pulling away but still stayed, hoping she'd change her mind? And if so, what did it cost you, your time, your pride, or your belief in yourself? She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.